Hey guys, welcome back to Creative Excuses. I'm Shelby and this is Jacob. I didn't even give you a chance that time.
I forgot we're doing the intro and the outro. I was just doing the outro. Today, and by today we mean over the past few days, we are/were editing photos for you.
For them?
Well, no, for us and for clients. And we want to show you how we edit, what our styles are, what we're looking for, what we're doing, all that stuff. So we hope you like learning how to edit. If you are a new photo editor, hopefully you learn some tips and tricks. And if you're not a photo editor, hopefully you learn some tips and tricks for like Instagram and stuff. Mm-hmm. We are editing a couple photos today. I'm gonna have some fun with this. This is a shot that I took of Shelby pretty shortly after we moved here. I think it was in October, around the time of our anniversary, and it was fun. We wanted to do like a high fashion shoot with Shelby as the model. I wanted to do it. It's fun to take pictures of your wife. What can I say? So here we go. The first thing that I start with usually is exposure and contrast and white balance, which is pretty standard, I think. So the first things I notice is that this image is pretty cool. So what I want to do is bring it up. We'll see how that looks. I do like to add in quite a bit of pink to my photos. Let's try 16. We'll see. It looks okay. About 20. Yeah, it looks okay, but we need to do something else. Big reason being it feels kind of washed out a little bit. So there's a couple ways you can get rid of that and deal with that. You can do texture, you can do clarity, contrast, dehaze. These are all tools that allow you to add some contrast, some oomph to your photo. The tools that I typically use are contrast. Just keep it going, but it's kind of making it a bit too dramatic now. We would go about there. I don't know, I'm not super happy with that yet, actually. Let's try turning that down. Now, dehazing does a little bit of a few things. It seems to add contrast while also bringing the colors out. It's the equivalent of like trying to get rid of a fog. So if you put like a mist filter on, right, you could dehaze and bring back some of the detail that you lose. Now, her hair there is still all the detail in the world in there, but I want to bring it up just a tiny bit. I think I want to bring the whites up a little bit. No, I don't. Maybe the exposure, go 0.2. Bring those blacks back down since I brought the exposure up. And now I feel like it needs a little more warmth in her skin. There's a couple of ways we can do this. We can bring this back up. 7900 maybe. There's more pink that I like. 47. All right. And then we can add some vibrance in ourselves. And this will be more like what I had in mind. Making her lips, which are already beautifully red, even just a little bit more red is pretty fun. I think it's fun. So I'm gonna grab that and I'm gonna just turn the saturation up just a little bit. This was a fashion shoot, right? And those typically have some very vibrant lip color. I like this. I think this is pretty good. Maybe it's a little too warm. Let's go back down to 7700. This feels pretty good. I'm on board with this. So now here's chromatic aberration. If there's any issues with the lens causing like red or magenta or green flaring around or blue flaring around edges, bright edges, this will get rid of it, most of it. And then remove profile corrections. Now that really brightens up the image. Normally I would turn this off. I would keep this off for this lens that Shelby has because I quite like the natural vignette that this lens has. But I think this time I'm gonna turn it on because I actually like how much brighter it is with these colors. I really like
a vignette on the photos. Shelby showed me the effect in Camera Raw and then Lightroom later on, and I really liked it, and I think I'm going to actually I use it a lot now. This does look really good bright like this, so let's not be too heavy-handed. Let's go like -3. Here's without and here's with. It's super subtle, but it brings the photo in a little bit. It's a nice effect. I am pretty happy with this.
So I am going to edit a portrait photo that I did this session this past weekend for a really awesome couple. They're super cute, and we did it at Princeton University on the campus grounds, and we just kind of walked around and then went to the downtown area afterwards. I'm loving looking through all of these already. I'll show you. So this is one of the sneak peeks. This is the one that we'll actually be editing. And then here's another sneak peek I'm gonna send them, and this one as well. For right now, I'm going to edit this one. To kick it off, I always start with exposure. Exposure already looks really good. I am just gonna add a little bit more because the histogram right here in the top right shows that it's a little dark. Most of the colors is towards that left end of the spectrum, so I'm just gonna bring it up a little. We'll go 0.1, looking good. And then we'll do the white balance up here. It doesn't need too much. It's honestly looking pretty good. We'll go maybe like 64, yeah, just to warm it up. And then because there's a lot of greens in here, you can see a slight green cast to it as well. So I'm gonna make that maybe 19. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then now for just other exposure stuff, I always bring my whites pretty far down. I like more of a matted look versus this other end of the spectrum, which is very blown out, very contrasty image. I like it more looking like this. I'm gonna bring up my shadows a little and my highlights just to add a little bit of a punch. And then I always take my blacks down just a little bit to give a little bit more contrast back into the image because I don't want it looking flat. And then I always add texture to all of my images just to give it a little bit of a punch. And I always add vibrance. That's a great starting point. And then on to HSL color, which is hue, saturation, luminance. I start with saturation, and I always take my yellows way down. So let's do that. I started that in Arizona because the trees in Arizona were very yellow. Like the greens were not like a true vibrant green like they are here. So I always took my yellows way down to get those greens to look more bright and more like a true green. Take my greens down a little, and then I'm going to take the blue on her jacket down just a little bit. I like how bright it is, but I don't want it to be too overpowering in the image. Okay, and then for hue, I'm going to slide my green slider to the right. If you go all the way, look at how crazy this green is. Okay, maybe not even that much. Let's go maybe like 12, 11. And then for the blue on her jacket, I'm gonna make it a little bit more purple. Okay, and then for luminance, I'm gonna take my greens down just a little, and then maybe the jacket a little as well. Cool. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go back to saturation now. Because I adjusted the hue on the green's looking a little bit too fake for me, so I'm gonna take the saturation down even more now that I've adjusted it for the hue. Okay, so maybe like 29. That looks pretty good. I love that, because now the green is still there, it's still bright, but it's not like overpowering in your face, and they're more of like the focal point of this image. Let's do a quick comparison for the HSL. I'm gonna turn it off and back on. And you can see, like, it's not a crazy difference, but it's like enough to like, you can definitely tell that there's a difference, that things are being changed. A lot of my editing is pretty subtle. I don't go too crazy in either direction because I'm a natural editor. I like keeping skin tones very true to color, very like warm and rich, and keeping everything looking very natural. Okay, now on to color grading. I have two colors that I go with. I go with orange and I go with purple. And it kind of varies photo to photo whether the oranges will be in the highlights or if they'll be in the shadows. Same with purples. So it's either one or the other. So I just kind of play around with it. Let's start with shadows. We'll put those in orange. Just pick a number. Highlights, we'll go purple. And I'll see how that looks and then I'll switch it up. So let's do highlights now, are orange, and shadows are purple. Okay, so now I just go back and forth and compare the two. Okay, so I'm liking oranges in the shadows for this particular image, so I'm gonna leave that there. And I'm gonna tone back the highlights a little bit. Let's go like 3. And that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. In the detail panel, I always add a little bit of noise reduction, lens corrections. Okay, and then transform. This just will straighten it. Auto usually does a really good job with this. That looks pretty good. Moving on. I always add a little bit of a vignette. That's too much for me. Let's do like 6. Okay, cool. And then the last part is calibration. This again just messes with the colors of the image. So I always take the blue primary and I go down just a little bit. Maybe like a 6. No, they look too red for that. That looks good. And then I bring my saturation up for this as well because it just adds so much vibrance to the image, and I like the way the greens look when I add saturation just to the blue primary. And this also helps with skin tones a lot. Like blue primary will help your skin tones look really good. And then let's see, maybe do some shadow, pink. Beautiful. Cool, okay, so I'm pretty happy with this. I'm looking back over the whole thing and just checking everything, looking at my colors, seeing if I want to adjust anything. I think it's good. I'm gonna adjust the hue of their skin tones just so that they look a little pink to me. So I'm just gonna change the reds in the hue to more like bring it up, because like this will take it very orange and yellowy, so I don't want to go real far. That looks good. And then I'm just gonna warm this whole thing up a little bit more. Cool, I'm happy with that. I always, for all of my images, I edit them all in Lightroom and then I bring them into Photoshop to do additional editing. So I will do skin retouching, some detailed sharpening, taking out people in the background as well. I'll do all of that in Photoshop. So you can see in this image, there are some people like sitting on the stairs behind them. It was a super busy time at Princeton because graduation was going on, so there were a ton of parents, there were people moving out, so there were people everywhere. But I was able to cover most of them with his body, and then these little extras I'm gonna take out in Photoshop, so I'll show you guys that next. So here I am in Photoshop now. There's not a whole lot to do for this image in Photoshop because their faces are turned away and both of them have great skin, so there's really not a lot of retouching to do, but I'll show you some of the things that I'm gonna do. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna zoom way in and gonna use my spot healing brush over here and just take out anything that looks basically red. I always leave freckles and moles because those are just part of your body and you should love them. But anything that looks like a pimple or a zit, they are gone. Let's smooth that out a little. Perfect, okay. Yeah, like I said, their skin looks great, so it doesn't need like anything. And then I'm just gonna take my sharpening tool over here, the little triangle, and I always sharpen their eyes. I go over their eyelashes just to give it that extra crispiness that the photo needs, and go right along where their faces meet basically, just to add a little bit of extra depth and dimension. And then maybe just over their ear a little, and their eyebrow. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go over her hair piece right here and the ends. Okay, cool. I would sometimes add for the girl, I would add a little bit of highlight right here just to bring out the cheekbones, but it's pretty hidden and you can tell it's already got some light bouncing off of her cheek right here, so she is good. Now, let's try to work on the background a little bit. So let's try to get rid of the few extra people that we can see. And to do this, I'm gonna use the clone stamp tool, zoom in real close here, and clone stamp does exactly what you think it does. It clones an area. So I selected this area over here and I'm basically gonna bring it through over here up until his arm. And this is just kind of slow work, honestly. It's just being patient and adjusting things when you can until they look good. Lots of blending and all of that. This is probably the most time-consuming thing that I do, is taking people out of backgrounds. So now I'm just gonna use my healing tool to go over those areas and really blend it out really nicely. Okay, so that bottom part looks pretty decent. Actually, that looks really good. What looks weird is like this is striped, like these are the stairs, right? But this part is just the sidewalk, like there's no creases or anything. So it looks kind of weird that this just like stops, but if you look at this, like we didn't change any of this. So, but it just looks kind of weird. I don't know, I'll come back to that area, let it sit for a second. I'll need to clean up this little section here next to her sleeve and then this darker part here. But this part looks pretty good, where the stairs actually are. So let's do this little section by his neck, which should be pretty easy. That's pretty good. Yeah, love when areas like that are easy. So now this part, this will be interesting because this blue color is reflecting off of this line as well on his neck. So you can see that there's blue and purple right here. So that'll be fun. You can see that this line on his shoulder is blue, his neck is purple, and you could chalk that up to basically chromatic aberration, but I know that it's because of the background, so I'm gonna fix that. Okay, so first I'm going to desaturate that area so that it will look a little bit more gray and not be as bright. Yes, okay, cool. So now that I did that, I got rid of most of those colors, so I'm actually gonna paint back a little bit of his skin tone onto his neck and a little bit of the shirt color onto that area. Yes, okay, love it. I went back and blended this little area a little bit more. So now this is this is the before, here's the after. Great. Okay, so there's just a couple other areas I wanted to work on. So let me do those real quick and then we'll do a full before and after of this image.
Hey, look at that. It's been a few minutes.
So that's how we edit.
So
Hope you guys enjoyed this video and got to see a little insight to our process and what we do and what we like. If you liked this video, go ahead and actually like it below. Leave a comment and of course subscribe.
Yeah, let us know what your favorite photo was.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys and we'll see you next time.
See ya. Why do I?